annually, and really should have been done annually going back a number of years. There's not, real penalty for not doing it, but we're trying to bring everything into compliance, and so that's why this is before you.
Councilor McPike?
Yeah, reading this over, I didn't see anything on there on, I'm not sure exactly how to word this, but sewer commissioners, I believe, which are the town councilors, and it's something supposed to be done yearly. Should that be added to this?
I will, when Paula's back in town, I'll have her look at whether those are part of the statutorily required officials.
Do I have a motion?
As much as the irresponsible youth in me would love to have a little fun teasing certain town officials about this, I'll refrain and just make a straight motion that we approve the annual appointment of designated town of Hampden officials pursuant to Title 30A as is described in the attachment.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Thank you. The next item is item F, request for the town council referral to public hearing amendment to Article 4 of the fees ordinance for the addition of impound fees requested by Chief Rogers. Basically, he wants to take, if your dog or cat is picked up, it would be a $35 fee, and then if it gets picked up again, it goes to $45, so on and so forth. So this is just a referral to public hearing. Do I have a motion to send it to public hearing?
I make a motion that we send to public hearing the amendment to Article 4 of the fee ordinance for the addition of an impound fee for stray animals.
Second.
Any further discussion on that? All in favor? All opposed? Thank you. The next item is item G, is a request for the town council referral to public hearing. The proposed amendments to Article 5.3 and 7.2 of the zoning ordinance was recommended by the planning board. Basically cleans up some of the verbiage. For an occupancy, you need a building permit. For a compliance, you need a site plan. And it describes the definition of a transfer station as part of those amendments. So this is a referral to a public hearing. Do I have a motion?
I would move we send to public hearing to the next council meeting the zoning amendments 5.3 and 5.7.2, which were passed by the planning board with an ought to pass recommendation.
Second.
Further discussion? All in favor? Whoop, Councilor McAvoy?
Just a quick question. This is in relation to what we were discussing about the disposition of, okay, thank you.
Any other discussion? All in favor? All opposed? Thank you. The next item tonight is 5H, is the Department of Education notice and calculation for funding public education for RSU 22. Town Manager Jennings.
All right, as the council is aware, the school board convened this past Wednesday, the 12th, with the intent to refer its proposed FY18 budget. However, at that time, they had not yet incorporated the state numbers on FY18 state funding for education. While the state budget was approved, I believe, on July 4th, or perhaps late in the day on July 3rd, it took another roughly 10 days before the Department of Education released the numbers of how those state education dollars would be allocated across the state. So, long story short, when the board met last Wednesday, they did not refer their budget as anticipated. Instead, they scheduled a special meeting, which is happening as we speak. And it's my understanding after this meeting, we may have, some of us may go over there. But the school board is expected to refer its budget tonight. In fact, it has to in order to meet the timeline. What the draft budget that they've released would result in a local increase of just under 1%, which is a marked improvement from the 4.1%, which we had been looking at in the budget that was initially proposed. That reduction is essentially entirely a result of additional state money that is available thanks to the adoption of the state budget. So the board will propose its budget tonight. The district budget meeting is a week from tomorrow, July 25th, at the Hampden Academy Gymnasium. That's a town meeting style meeting. Public attendance is strongly encouraged, and there is an opportunity for people to stand up and make comments, ask questions, and even to propose to decrease or to increase certain of the cost centers within the school budget. So it's a very participatory meeting, and the school board's budget, which is recommended tonight, may or may not be the budget that comes out of the district budget meeting. The budget that comes out of that meeting is what voters will act on by referendum on Tuesday, August 1st.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda tonight is committee reports. Services, Councilor Marble.
Services Committee met last Monday, July 10th. We had an update on the broadband grant from Kyle Severance, the GIS IT specialist. There's a survey that's been going on. Some folks have found that clear and easy to respond to. Others have wondered what it was. It called for a business attraction plan, but the survey responses are really suggesting private homes in rural areas of coverage are the ones struggling, which isn't a surprise to anybody in Hampden, I don't think. Kyle did mention that with the change to spectrum, the cost for municipal building service has been reduced from approximately $350 a month to less than $150. So we want to note good news when it happens as well. As was voted tonight, there was a request for authorization for matching funds from the Marina Reserve. There was a request made for town funding, as we have in previous years, to offset costs of event insurance for Hampden Children's Day. That will probably be on the finance agenda or the council agenda for August 3rd. I think the first meeting date is in August. Do I have that right? I'm guessing. First meeting in August. I'm not sure of the date, and I apologize.
It's the first council meeting?
Yeah.
Is the 7th.
The 7th?
Yep.
Okay. And we were given an update on the town's contract with an entity called Seacoast Soccer. That's a fairly professional, I shouldn't say fairly, it's evidently a professional organization that I had not known anything about prior to that night, that is offering no cost to the town, direct instruction and instruction to parents and coaches for, I think in general, elementary school level soccer wannabes. Sounded like a pretty healthy and reasonable thing. And that was the meeting a week ago.
Thank you. Finance and Administration, Councilor Wild.
Yes, the last meeting we had was back in June, middle of June, I forget the exact date, but about a month ago, where we discussed an MMA grant for safety equipment and matching funds in order to procure that equipment for, at a town's cost of $833. We also discussed funds from the Environmental Trust and authorizing payments from such trust in the amount of $300,900, right in that area, I think $911 or so. That was broken down into 5 different pieces, which I won't go through here tonight, but the total of it was over $300,000, which was a very good thing, good step in the right direction. Contract awards for the paving program for the town of Hampden for 2017 was approved on that particular night and moved over to the council for approval. We also had a separate part of that, which was a pond road chip seal, I believe. It was a different process that I was familiar with, but that was moved to council for approval. We also had a contract award for the Public Works metal roof rehabilitation with an expenditure of $41,350 from the Public Works Garage Reserve account. Contract award for $10,000 for pool painting, or inside the pool building, not the pool itself, I believe, but various parts of the building's interior. That was passed 7-0 to move it on to the council. And that night, we did discuss in depth about the school budget meetings and so forth, but that's been talked about a lot since then, so I'm not going to get into that tonight, but that was a discussion that night also. We also reviewed the proposed fiscal year 18 town and sewer budgets and made it one step closer to finalizing those and getting those really nailed down so that we don't see big swings from year to year. And that was the extent of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you. Planning and Development, Councilor McBike.
The last Planning and Development Committee meeting that we had, I believe, was back in June 21st, I think. There will be one this Wednesday night, this coming Wednesday night. We got an update on Fiberite. As probably everyone's aware, that the water is now out Colebrook Road and going into the plant. My understanding is that the site has been cleared. From there, I don't have any idea what's going on, and perhaps we'll get an update Wednesday night. The brunt of the meeting, I believe, was taken up by a concern of citizens and out on Route 69 about marijuana growing facilities. That took up a lot of time, about an hour of the meeting, much unbeknownst to us as to what was going on, and as far as we were concerned here, everything was legal, it was medical, but it did lead to a lot of questions. Those questions have been passed on to the appropriate people, and at this Wednesday night meeting, there will be answers to that. As most everyone's aware, the state has not made any decisions on this yet. Still going on, and it looks like they maybe even have to extend their time period. They're at great confusion before it goes recreational. But we will have answers on the medical end of it, and there's a lot of it that is state-controlled. Above and beyond that, I can't think of anything else that we did that amounted to anything. That's it.
Thank you. And in the last Infrastructure Committee meeting, we had a lot of discussion on the issues on Schoolhouse Lane, possible cost and solutions of Public Works Director has recommended putting under drain on both sides of the road and rebuilding the road. The initial cost that we had was just over $300,000. So we've kind of gone to looking into some alternate ways, maybe of doing that to cut costs. So we're researching that a little further to see how we can resolve that with spending the least amount of money. One of the other discussions was the Gristmill Bridge, which is known to some as Waterworks Hill, the bridge at the bottom. Financing options when they redo that bridge. The town is responsible for the sewer line and stuff underneath that bridge, so that's a cost that we're going to have to take. So we discussed our responsibility and how we're going to finance that. We talked about Sargent's completion of the infrastructure on the business park, discussed the Public Works capital program and potential FY18 reserve cost. Pine Tree Water Quality Report, we moved information at the next infrastructure meeting from Drumlin. That will be this Monday night, the 24th, I believe it is. That report should be available on that night to go over that report. We also had a discussion of artificial flowers in the cemeteries. That will be brought up again Monday night at the Infrastructure Committee meeting. And that was pretty much a long night of infrastructure. So the next item on the agenda tonight is the Town Manager's Report. Town Manager Jennings.
All right. I'd like to initially thank Chief Joe Rogers for serving as acting town manager. I've been on vacation the past week and a half or so, and really enjoyed the time off, and I thank him for stepping up and for the many staff who stepped up while I was gone and came back, and building was still here and everything was still standing. I was very happy about that. For people who live on roads that are going to be repaved this year as part of the paving schedule, you should have received letters last week saying that the work was scheduled to begin. That was actually scheduled to begin today. That was pushed back a week for reasons to do with the contractor. So if you have questions about the specific timing of your road, you can contact the Public Works Department. But otherwise, you just wait and your road will be repaved in due course. I wanted to make sure people know there is a special meeting of the council tomorrow at 4 p.m. at the Public Works Garage. It's not a regular council meeting. It's a special, basically a one-issue meeting to talk about the Public Works vehicle capital program and to look at some of the vehicles. That is a public meeting. If people would like to attend, that's tomorrow at 4 at the Public Works Garage. Following up on Chairman McPike's comments on the last P&D meeting, there is another planning and development meeting this Wednesday. There will be the first kind of formal report from staff following up on the council's adoption of a resolution earlier this year on recreational marijuana. And to preview that, basically the town planner is moving forward with draft zoning amendments to implement the council's policy direction toward prohibiting retail sales and social clubs, and on the broader questions of the other allowed uses, cultivation, testing, and so forth. That work is still ongoing, but for people interested in that issue, we are making progress on that. I want to let people know there is a meeting of the Children's Day Committee tomorrow at 6 o'clock at the Skiing Center, and whether people can participate in the committee or not, there's always opportunities for volunteers on the day of the event, which is Saturday, August 12th. And finally, I'd like to encourage continued public participation in the school budget process, including the district budget meeting a week from tomorrow, the 25th. As I said a few minutes ago, that is a very active public meeting and real opportunity for people to make their voice heard. And from what we have seen, it appears that public involvement has really had a positive impact. So we encourage that to continue.
Thank you. The next item on the agenda tonight is councilor comments. Councilor McAvoy.
Thank you, Mayor Ryder. I just want to remind everybody to shop local and buy American. Good night, Hampden.
Thank you. Councilor Cormier.
No comment.
Councilor Marble.
I want to make a couple remarks about public participation and what it can mean. Number of us on the council at different times over the last couple of years have mentioned that it's helpful, it's appropriate, it's meaningful when members of the public take the time to get involved and bring their discussions and concerns to the council, so we don't feel like we're sitting in a room basically talking with each other, but we're actually doing the town's business. I want to point out two events in connection with the RSU, with our public education and the cost of that education, as showing to different extents what can happen when people get involved. And one is very obviously the fact that the last proposed RSU budget was not passed. And that was as a result of a lot of conversation, but it was ultimately the result of people coming out of their homes and coming to a public meeting and listening and making their voices and opinions heard. Predating that, because the other big event with the school is an increase in state funding, which is going to probably help us significantly. It's hard to take a legislative session and go back and figure out all of the moves and all of the discussions and all of the committees that took place. But the fact is that representatives of this council, along with the town manager, met with our local legislators months ago, advocating for the need for a more fair and deserving level of state funding to take some of the burden off the property taxpayer when it comes to the cost of public education. I'm not going to say tonight that the increase we're seeing, which is in the neighborhood of $565,000, was directly a result of that meeting. But advocacy and taking the time to get involved can bring results, and that, to me, is the biggest message of all of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilor Wild.
No comment.
Councilor McPike.
Yeah, I'd just like to take a moment to express my hard times that I have at the board meeting of the school board. The board meetings are held, for anyone who's been there, in the library, and I'm assuming the libraries are designed to be quiet, which that one is very quiet. The board sits in a U-shaped manner so that they can talk across to each other, And as a result of that, some of us have extreme difficulties in even being able to hear anything that goes on in the back of the room. And I think Councilor Marble will agree with me on that, because we asked 2 or 3 times if they would speak up to this. Now, they have done nothing in the past to put in any kind of a speaker system or anything, or change in any area where the public would be more invited to be this, and it becomes very discouraging, and I can see why perhaps people who wanted to go to school board meetings wouldn't go, because they can't hear, and they may feel like they're not participating in this or being able to get it. I would make a strong recommendation, being here, going out to the public, and for hopefully the school board members who are watching this, the other people, that perhaps you could do something to make it more inviting for the public to be at your meetings and to hear and understand exactly what you're talking about, primarily to be able to hear this. It is very concerning, and I don't know if this is your desires to do this, but it becomes very degrading to us out there to have to put up with this. Thank you.
Councilor Soroyce?
No comment.
And I have no comment tonight, so do we have a motion for adjournment?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Thank you. Good night, Hampden.